Hello, my name is Michael Levine and welcome to Without Notes. My partner for the expedition is Chris Voss. Chris Voss was the former lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. So, let me try to frame that for you if I may. If you were an American, anywhere in the world, and you had the unfortunate distinction of being kidnapped, presumably by some pretty bad folks, maybe in some bad places, friends, you better hope that Chris Voss liked you pretty well. Welcome to Without Notes, Chris.
Thanks, Michael. A pleasure to be here. I'm really happy to be here.
Thanks. In 1985, you are assigned to a terrorism
Task Force. The Joint Terrorist Task Force. Right.
Paint a picture for the audience of what New York City in 1985 is like. Specific to what terrorism, what the thought process is or not, or how lenient or aware we were of what was a storm brewing 20 years out, 15
We were
years
oblivious to the storm. It was right in between what I refer to as the first generation, second generation terrorist task force. The first generation had been focused completely on domestic terrorism, and they had knocked every group knocked them silly. There wasn't really anything left of anybody. They had made phenomenal cases, and it was actually very quiet leading up to the first World Trade Center bombing in 1993.
When does the dreadful day arrive of the first World Trade Center bombing?
February 26, 1993.
What happens? Where were you?
The Trade Center changed the world in two moments. And the first moment was when the bomb went off.
Right. First, if you wouldn't mind, take some of our viewers back to what happened that day. A bomb was placed where?
You know, it was... They put a bomb in one of the parking ramps underneath the Trade Center.
Mm-hmm.
In the position,
in the garage.
It was a van in the garage directly below one of the towers. Mm-hmm. Ammonium nitrate fuel oil combination. An entire van load of explosives. Mm-hmm. And they put it under the corner, and the intention was to knock one corner of the tower out so that it fell into the other tower.
So literally their mission, however bizarre it sounds, was to get a building, the tallest building in the world at the time, to fall based on knocking one end of the building down.
And falling into the other tower.
Yeah.
That was what their intention was.
Well, I will say that ambition was certainly their strong suit. But let's talk about what happened that day and where you were.
Well, so as it turns out, I happen to be home sick.
Okay.
I get a call that there's...
Where is home?
They're calling it. I lived in northern New Jersey, only about 15 miles from the city, not very far.
Right.
And, you know, at first they said a transformer explosion, which was nonsense. They didn't know what it was. And so I get a call, and this is before cable. So, for all intents and purposes...
Before email. It's before...
All of television is still coming through the air.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So I turn my TV on, and not one channel is broadcasting.
Wow.
Because every TV antenna was on top of the World Trade Center. And in order to the emergency response, when they landed the helicopters, the first thing they did was they chopped all the antennas off the top of the Trade Center so that the helicopters could land.
Got it.
So I turn the TV on, there's nothing.
Right.
And I start making phone calls, and you know, they had to get the terrorist guys, when there was no terrorism, out to investigate the crime.
Right.
So the FBI and the ATF are kind of all over the crime scene.
Now, they did not succeed in knocking the building down, but about 1,000 people were injured.
And 6 people were killed.
6 killed, 1,000 injured, 1,000 Americans injured.
Right, mostly from smoke inhalation. Mm-hmm. Not that many people.
Do you go down to the
blast.
World Trade Center?
Not that day.
Next day.
I go in the next day. We're organizing our response. The FBI and the ATF are jockeying back and forth over whose case it is.
Do they catch someone pretty quickly?
Well, that was when the next moment when the world changed.
When did the world change next?
When the piece of the van that was found in the debris that identified the van, that immediately linked it to guys we had been investigating since 1987.
So since 1987, 7 years, by the way, this is a very interesting piece to the puzzle of the terrorist patient mindset.
Right.
1987, you know these guys are not playing tiddlywinks. You're looking at 1993. So what happens with the van?
Well, as soon as they identify the van and it's linked to guys that we've been on, then of course they make the arrangement, you know, Salome, one of their members, he's going to go back to the rental car place to get his deposit back for the van that they used for the explosive. He calls and wants his deposit back. You know, nobody can believe that anybody's going to be dumb enough to do this. But so they take, it then becomes a joint FBI operation between FBI Newark, FBI New York City. They put one of the Newark guys in the van rental store, and
sure enough,
this
the guy
moron comes in to get his deposit back, and they arrest him.
They caught him. So this then precipitates an entire new attitude in the FBI.
Well, it does. Suddenly, the thing that really made the biggest difference while we were investigating this, a little less than a month later, we're trying to get our arms around the bombing, and we've got an informant that walks in and says, there's another group, and they want to blow up 4 locations simultaneously. And now everybody's listening.
Yeah.
And so we get on these guys. And as it shakes out, there's sort of competing factions.
Radical Islamic.
Yeah, radical Islamic terrorists. They all of them had the same spiritual leader. A guy who's now doing life plus 60 in federal penitentiary, Sheikh Omar Abdel Rahman.
I call that sentence a good start, by the way.
It's a good start.
It's a start.
He was in fact a legitimate Islamic scholar who was giving fatwas, permissions for acts of terrorism.
Fatwas are orders of death.
Well, it's a religious decree that something is either good or something is bad. And these two groups they were beholden, in order to commit an act of terrorism, they had to get permission from 2 people. They had to get permission from a tactical leader who would pronounce their plan sound, and then they had to go to a legitimate religious leader who would say this falls within our rules of acceptable jihad. And the blind sheikh lived in New Jersey, and he was the guy that they went to, and they said, we want to blow up the World Trade Center, and he said, it's a good idea.
That's my boy.
Good job.